Wow, everyone, are you ready for an unexpected journey? Today we're going to talk about a peculiar tale of a driver and his boss. Right, he's black. An old friend called, offering Tony a job. It sounded good, but Tony was nervous before the interview. As he walked into the lavish room, Tony's face dropped when he saw his interviewer was black. Talk about a twist. Right off the bat, Don revealed he was a concert pianist preparing for a tour. Facing southern racism, Don needed a driver/bodyguard, clearly seeking a pro to avoid trouble. After checking Tony's resume, Don thought he was the perfect fit, skilled and smooth with people. Tony felt bummed, like being jolted, so he named an absurd price. Surprisingly, the next day, Don called and agreed to Tony's high price. Tony's heart was doing flips of joy and disbelief. Before setting off, Don's company paid Tony half upfront and gave a green book a real Swiss knife. Back then, in America, without the book, traveling as a black person was like navigating sans GPS, extremely tough. His wife saw him off, reminding him to be back before Christmas Eve, a promise that was definitely a tight squeeze. And so, they embarked on an unknown tour, with Don immediately laying out a hazard avoidance guide. Don told Tony that there were 2 rules. First, the piano must be a Steinway. Second, a bottle of smooth-sailing veggie was a non-negotiable. No kidding. Tony continued munching on the lavish breakfast his wife made for him, then lit up a cigarette like it was a royal decree. In the car, Don put up with it for a good while, then finally snapped and told Tony to lay off the smokes. Quite the revelation. On the road, Tony stopped to pick someone up, but remembered to pocket his wallet. This infuriated Don. At the first stop, Tony unexpectedly found Don's bandmate flirting downstairs, while Don sat on the balcony, drinking in despair. For the show, Don reminded Tony yet again that they had to attend some fancy shindig after. Little did he know, Tony confidently stated he didn't need to say anything. After all, he wasn't planning on joining any high society. Watching the formal show about to start, Tony jokingly said earlier, "It's like taking something. What does sincerity even mean?" Then the show officially kicked off, and Tony discovered why Don was the man for the tour. Don got his big break performing for white audiences when he was just 18. He not only performed in New York museums, but also played at the White House twice. Now that's awesome. During the performance, Don played with such grace, the beautiful melodies left the audience in awe. Tony finally understood the brilliance of Don, but not long after, he was off gambling with the servers. After the performance, Don called Tony over, mentioning that next time he needed to make more money and suggested ways to get it. Listening to Don, Tony felt a twinge of shame and began to ponder the wisdom in his words. That night they returned home, and Tony wrote a letter to his wife filled with pleasantries and increasingly more stories about Don. In the letter, he didn't forget to mention how Don was such a genius that he completely forgot about his skin color. The next day, the duo hit the road again, and Tony spotted a beautiful little stone, thinking to buy it for his wife. The price made him reconsider. He saw a fallen stone, picked it up without hesitation. Little did he know, Don's bandmate spotted this and immediately realized this was not a wise move. Don insisted that Tony return the stone, but Tony, confused, asked why he should return something he picked up. Don maintained a serious demeanor until Tony reluctantly trudged back to return the stone. Soon after, they reached the next performance venue, and Tony went to check the piano only to find it was a dumpster in disguise. He approached the staff, only to receive a response that sent him over the edge. According to the contract, they were supposed to supply a high-quality piano, yet the staff simply didn't give a hoot. Naturally, Tony couldn't hold back and slapped that staff member right across the face. As the show began, Tony watched Don play with a joyful glow on his face, completely unaware he was being melted by Don's talent. En route to the third stop, they passed a fried chicken joint, and Tony gazed longingly at the window like a starving lion. Unable to resist, Tony bought a bucket of fried chicken, devouring it in the car as if celebrating a hard-won victory. He even offered Don a drumstick, seriously encouraging him to give it a try. Eventually, Don reluctantly took the drumstick, savoring his very first bite of fried chicken with sheer delight. Tony tossed out the bones, and Don chuckled, mirroring the action until Tony caught him and said no. Translated, throwing bones helps nature, but glass cups just pollute. Let's cherish the environment. As they traveled further south, the racism intensified, forcing them to split accommodations. Don ended up at a small inn, sipping whiskey alone, feeling really out of place in the atmosphere. He thought about joining other black patrons, but had to make up an excuse to avoid the awkwardness. Suddenly, Don's companions knocked, saying he was in trouble, and they rushed to a bar where things turned quite awkward. At the bar, Don was drunkenly knocked out cold, while Tony watched with a panic-stricken face. If you want to know what happens next, make sure to subscribe. Don't forget to hit that bell for more fabulous